The work has been coming to me during the week, and every day is a nice surprise. Uh, all the things we've done in 6 weeks is really amazing to me. Starting with the palette and out your window, and then to the leaves and the negative painting and the cherry tree, and so on and so forth. This week, we kind of finished the veggie thing, and I think everybody, took their hand at that, whether it was a poster or whether it was, bless you, Joanne. um, it was a surprise because there were so many styles to review, and some people are newer, some people have more experience, but whatever the level, the work was just wonderful. Today, kind of winding down, I just wanted to review and see if there were any questions about any of the things we did. I'm gonna look along the way, and if I see something come into the chat, then I'll do that. There are, the last thing we worked on were the Ks, or for me, it was the K. But what I'd like to see is what anybody else has to show me. Anybody else have a letter to show me? No? Oh dear, yes, okay. We have something here. Let's see what Cheryl, oh, here we go. Okay, this is Lita. Hi, Lita. That's very pretty.
Hi.
And you're still working on it, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's kind of like years ago, the illuminated letters where they started off literature or poems. That's very beautiful. Okay, keep going. Yay. Anybody else? No? Oh, here we go. There, look at that. Lovely. Candy and Andrea. I don't know what to call you. There she is. That's beautiful.
I did the A for Andrea.
Andrea, okay. Okay, that's very beautiful. All right.
you.
Are you happy with that? Now,
Yeah.
did you just make up that letter?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a beauty. Okay, anybody else? Come on, ring in. Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
This is the combo, right?
Yes.
Sandy, you want to
Yes.
talk about that?
Yeah. So Zentangle, we were doing a yin yang symbol. And so I also saw all the S curves. So I thought I could combine the two projects. And I did a little Zentangle, but mostly more watercolor, I guess. So
Yeah, that's a beauty. Wow.
So yeah,
Okay.
the guy over here. So there's a lot of S curves, and I put more in when I tried to get the
Yes.
S's. Yeah.
I see her
Two
tail.
more S curves. Yeah, her tail, yeah. And the hair.
Lovely.
Thank you.
You're outside.
Of course, yeah.
Okay. All right. Anyone else? Who else is with us that has a letter?
Right in front of you. Here. Cheryl.
Oh, there we go. Okay, Cheryl. What is going on there, Cheryl? Tell us.
Wow.
I have no idea.
It's a big C.
It's a big C, and it's lots of flowers. And because I like to garden, and there's a little C in the middle that's masked, and it's just
Fun.
it is.
It is fun. Now, did you do masking anywhere else on that before you
I
started
did
painting?
masking. I did masking around the flowers. I did not mask the large portion of the sea. It's just exposed. I mean, I just did that and left it open and painted on there. But I masked around the flowers. It was like it kept evolving.
Oh yeah,
So,
I know what that means. Yeah.
But then I did, this one is kind of scary.
That's okay. Scary. Oh, that's not so scary. Reminds me of a caterpillar in a way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Very nature-like.
It's scary.
Oh, I know. Well, I'll tell you. You guys, I posted what happened to me. I started out one place, and it just came apart. It was like, does anybody else have a letter to show before we move on? No? No? Okay, Michelle, if you could switch back. Oh, you know what? Wait, before we switch back. Oh, well, we are. Okay. Let me give you a little story about, just quickly, about what happened here. I started out looking for different kinds of cool Ks. Okay, and then I said, well, let's see what I can do with that. And then I started out by just masking fluid on the top, and then I painted over it, and then I took the masking fluid off. Oh man, what a mess. So I said, okay, I took the painting as it was. Whoops. I took the painting as it was, and I just tore it in all these little pieces. And this is the kind of the final. You know, I didn't really trim it out or anything, but I tore out the K, all the Ks, and then little pieces of the background. I painted a new background to lay everything on. So, you know, there's always hope. There's always hope. I mean, I can't say that I love this, but I can't say that I hate it. And I think I salvaged it, which is something I wanted to say that you can definitely do. You know, if you find yourself lost somewhere and you don't know you don't like what you're doing, well, just don't throw it in the garbage. Keep it, you know, keep it handy, and maybe you'll pick it up at another time and try something else with it. This is kind of a combination watercolor collage, la la la. And then I added some, of course, a little bling. See those little stones? I had some stones. I put them on, you know, just for fun. And it now it's not so bad. And when it's trimmed out, I think it'll be a decent looking attempt. Okay. Anybody else? No? Okay. All righty. Let's see now. I had an idea. Oh, Sue, you had asked me, I had done in one of the classes where we had done macro flowers, where it was really close up onto the flower. And then I had letter things where it was L, M, D, and that stood for light, medium, dark values of that same flower. So if you go back to painting that, that's exactly what it's about. Look at your reference and you'll see where the things are the lightest, middle tones, and then the dark and the darkest and medium, the dark tones, and even the shadow tones. And I want to say, don't be afraid of darks. They can really be your friend because they can offset the lights so well that it really works in painting. It's a little scary when you say, oh, is it really that dark? Yes, it is that dark. Or is it really that light? Yes, it is that light. So don't be afraid to go for the darks and the lights. And even when you have what I call a pastel palette or a lighter palette or a lighter touch, there's nothing wrong. There's got to be some darks in there somewhere at some level. Okay? Now, I don't know.
You have a couple questions on the board.
Oh, let's see what we got here. Okay,
Yeah,
I see that. Okay, would you tell us about can you see this? Let's see, let me push this down here. You know what these are? These are old brushes that I had for years. And I said to my husband, you know, I'm tired of looking at them standing in the tin. So I had him drill holes, and it's inspiring to wear this. It's fun. Okay.
Is it heavy? It looks
No,
heavy.
it's not. It's not heavy at all, really. I don't know why it's not heavy. And I found this, oh, you know what the little rings that attach everything are like those binder rings. You know, you can find them in the craft store. And then this necklace I found on the sale table in Bloomingdale's. And it's not even real anything. I don't know what it is. It just happens to be, you know, it had rings. So I said, hey, there you go. So you can see this, and it's fun. It really is. So don't throw away your old brushes. Just get somebody to draw holes in them. Okay, could we have a brush demonstration? What kinds of brushes? Of course we can. In fact, why don't we do that right now, since it's a question on the board. And today is all about catching up and if you have any questions. Okay, Michelle, you want to switch to the table? Okay, I'm going to show you the different kinds of brushes. And of course, besides the different kinds of brushes, there's so many different sizes. Can everybody see those really well? Okay, good. Now I'm just gonna lube them up a little bit so we can see what, this is this large round brush. It's just a round brush, but it's a number 14, I think. Let's see, 18, excuse me. Let's get something really exciting here, color-wise. Okay. And it's good for a lot of things. I would say it's really good for a nice big wash area. And the other thing about it is if it's a decent brush, if it's a decent round brush, what happens is it goes to a really, really fine point. See that? That's when it's a good brush, when it can do this and when it can do that. And also something in between. So it's worth it. And this brand, this silver black velvet, I mean, it sounds like, wow, silver, black, and velvet all in one name. It sounds expensive, but it's not. Jerry's carries this line. And I have the 18, and then I also have the 4, which I love this 4, because talk about fine, when you want to have something really fine, I'll do something really fine over here. So this is the 4. And you can control this brush. And it can be wispy. It's not just a fine line brush. It has a wispy feel to it. So see, that's a 4. Okay, same brand, the silver black. And then recently I bought in the same line a number 10 because I wanted something in between. So it does the same things, but just a little different size. So if you don't want to go crazy, you know, it has the nice coverage, and then it also will give you that point. That is the distinguishing factor in the quality of a brush. No, I think this light is too much. So we can see all 3 of those. So, and they're not expensive. And you know, the life of a brush, if you take care of it, I posted online that I have my water. I don't know if you can see this in there. Oh, it's a little yucky now. I have a little pod in the bottom. Let me see if I can dig it out. Oh, here we go. Believe it or not, this is something so simple, but you see this? I'm going to put it down there. And it goes in the bottom of whatever you're washing your brushes in. And I want to tell you, it really takes care of the brushes. It takes all the paint out, and it does a great job. Let me come a little closer to the camera. And it's a couple dollars, and it's so worth it. So get yourself, let me see the name of it. I'll get the package. I know Blick has them, and I bought mine on Amazon because you can buy a few together, and it's called, let's see, would it put me in your rinse cup? Paint puck. That's a paint puck. So that's how it comes, and it's, you know, it's a good thing. It's a good thing to take care of your brushes. Brush care is, you know, if you're going to invest the money in a good brush, then why not take good care of it? Okay, let's go on to the flats now. So those were the rounds. Those are the 3 rounds, 18, 10, and 4. The flat brushes. This one, I I think this is a 10 or a 12. When do you use a flat brush? I'm sure that's a question out there. Let's see, let me try. A flat brush is when you I use them when I have to deal with something that's more geometric and I need to have some kind of a flat starting line. And then, you know, hook up with it. And I'll tell you, when you practice and you have the control, it's really your friend. It really can make a difference. And if I try to do the same exact thing, I'm going to go back and pick up the round brush and show you the difference. So you can get your corners. I mean, not that this is a measured thing, but if you want to get a visual box, that's a good way to go. If you picked up the round, you know, you could do something like that, but it won't feel exactly, you don't have the control and the edges are not the same. It's hard to control the edges. Okay, so see the difference between the flat and the round? Okay. The other kind of brush that the other thing I use besides the rounds and the flats is the scrubber. And I talked a little bit about that, which, you know, scrubbers come in many different sizes. And of course, we have to work on something that's dry. I don't know if I have anything that's dry here. Let's see. Oh, I might. But I'll tell you, when you finish a painting and you say, oh, I wish that had been lighter, or I wish that something wasn't there. If you work on something that's dry, and never leave your brush, by the way, never leave your brush standing in the water because it will get a club foot and it's very hard to redeem that, okay? So you take a scrubber, you dip it in water, okay? And with your area being very, very dry, you can absolutely, and you don't want to go at it like, you know, really heavy duty. What you want to do is repeat an area. And you do exactly what the name says. You're scrubbing across the surface because you don't want to really rip the paper. But you can see that I just did that line there. You know, you can see that's working. And say, you know, like we did our radishes, and I think I commented to someone, oh, you really need to go back and get a highlight out of there. You really need to either lift it with a brush. Let's see if I can do that with this small brush. You can go back in. Now, of course, this isn't red, but you can go back in, put water, 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 keep at it, and then blot it. And you can, you have to be patient, and sooner or later it will lift the paint. And depending on how good your paper is, that's why good paper makes a difference, because it will put up with all of this going back and working on things, trying to get things from it. Now going in there with the scrubber, let me see how good a lift I can do there. Now the scrubber does a little better job. You see that dot right there? So that really lifted it, you know, lifted it well. The brush will do it. I think the brush is better when the paint is not so dry. It's dry, but not so dry. Okay. Any other questions? Let's see. That's I love that. Can you suggest a brand of watercolor paints? Yes, I can suggest a brand. You know, there's so many brands out there on the market. I'm gonna just dash over there and get my paints. Okay. two things going on here. Now, if you're really gonna invest and work in painting, and I'll tell you, this collection of paints, and I have them in these little plastic boxes that have divisions. And the reason I do that is so that I can find things, mostly in a hurry. So the greens are here, the blues, the browns, and then some neutral tones in here. So that when I know I have to find something quickly, I mostly use Winsor Newton. And let's see. I think there are two grades of Winsor Newton. And the one grade, which is not a real expensive line, is the, I think it's the Cotland, C-O-T. And then the other one I really like is this Lockwell, L-A-Q-U-R-E-L-L-E. They're colors. There's something about these colors that are just very, very different and very beautiful. And these things last a long time. That's why with a palette, you have the palette and you're not refilling it every time. You put them in and then you revive them every time you sit down to paint. You just add the water. Okay. So those are the two, and the other brand. So it's Winsor Newton, Lockwell, and then this Holbein, Holbein. And lots of times Blick will have a sale on these things. So you just look for them and you look for the colors. Okay. All right. So did we catch up here? What do you wash your brushes with? I wash them, first of all, don't use too warm of a water, because what happens is the too hot water gets in here. Let me see, gets in here where the bristles are attached to the stem, and it starts to release the bristles. So use like a coolish warm water and just a tiny bit of dishwashing soap, and I go right in the palm of my hand, just like that, very, very carefully, and rinse them in cold water, and then just store them upright. Okay, let's see. That's it. I think that's it for the questions right now. Oh, one other paint idea. Let me show you. If you're not going to invest in the tube paints, I recently bought this, and I think I showed everybody, but I'll show you again. This was on Amazon, and it is absolutely a marvelous tool. Whoops. Whoop, hang on. Okay, it's especially nice for traveling about, because look what happens. You have all these colors. I think it's maybe 58 colors. It folds up into something like this. You can have that in your pocketbook. And it has like a little spongy thing to do your brush on, and then it has a mixing tray. So, it's a wonderful thing. And they have it on Amazon. They have it where they have different amounts of colors, so you can get it. And I don't think it has a name. Let's see. No, well, you'll recognize it for sure. Oh, here's a name. SUPCRIOR 58. So it's Supror, SUPCRIOR 58. And 58 is how many colors are here. Okay, so this is another a pan idea. I mean, there's all kinds of pans, but this has a decent amount of colors to it. And the quality of the paint is really creamy, and it's a good quality paint. So, and it comes in a really nice box. By the bottom, it's, it just looks good. Okay.
Karen,
Yes. Yes.
I have something similar. I haven't tried it yet, though. My daughter gave me this for Mother's Day, and it comes with the water brushes too, which you fill with the water if you're traveling or you're on vacation. But it opens up like paint.
Oh, I've seen that. How do you like that?
I didn't try it yet, but I thought it was great to travel with if you want to take it down the shore or whatever, because everything's in there, and it has the little thing there too for the brush thing. And it
Now,
has 42 colors.
do you know where she got that?
Amazon.
Oh, there you go. Boy,
I
don't they
think
have
so.
everything?
I think that's where she ordered, and she ordered the paper too, which still hasn't come, but the good paper, but.
Very
anyway.
good. So, but if you're going to stay in this, if you're going to really stick with it, the value of the tubes really go a long way. I would definitely suggest that. Okay. Don't the colors smear all over each other when you fold up the kit? Well, you don't want to do it wet. You don't want to fold it up wet. You want to fold it up when they're, when it's dry. So you leave it open, try to let them dry out. And then, and if, oh, the other thing is, oh my God, what if you have to go somewhere and you can't wait for them to dry? Take a paper towel and just put it in between, and the paper towel will soak up the water. I've done that when I've been in a class and I have to leave in a dash. Okay?
Karen, what about
Yes.
picking the colors when you buy the tubes? How do you decide your colors?
How do you decide? Well, you know what? You kind of have to build on colors that you find. Say you're doing a lot of landscape. Well, they must have, I don't know, 30 different greens. So you want to look at some of the deeper greens, the lighter greens, the medium greens, and they have charts, and those are very hard to deal with, those charts. They almost never look like what's coming out of the tube. So what I normally do is I don't tell them, but I have a little, I have a little piece of paper with me, and I open up the tube and I put paint on the end of my finger and I wipe it across this piece of paper. So I can see what's going to happen to that color on a piece of paper. I mean, I don't do it, with everything. If I'm looking for a certain gold or a certain red, I will try it. And that's, that's the way I do it. But, and then I've made that big chart that I think I showed you, where every time I buy something new, I add that to the chart. So I can go back there and say, well, what's the best red? And then if I'm adding more reds to something, or I'm adding purple, or I'm adding, you add them as you go, and colors you like and colors you find you're working with. That's how you build your library of color. Okay, good. All right. Okay. The next thing on our agenda, we looked at letters, we looked at brushes. People were asking me about making their own cards. You know those cards that I make from the paintings? For instance, this one. Okay, I mean, it's kind of a cool shape. And this card, by the way, this card shape is a Strathmore card. They have them. And this one is as well, this shape. And it has a deckled edge, which is nice. And you should always sign your work and date it, which is fun, because when you send it to somebody, you want them to know it's yours. How do you do that exactly? Now, the best thing is, I mean, everybody will have their painting, of course. Now, if you take a photo of your painting, and if you have a computer that has a program that is a page setup program, you can set up, a couple next to each other. You don't have to put one on a page. You can put a couple on a page, and you set them up in the file, and you can either send them as an email to Staples, or you can send them to, I don't know, Upper Montclair has Sun Graphics. I've done a lot of work with Sun Graphics, and they will output your file on a cover laid paper. LAID is the paper, and it makes it look like watercolor. So it's an 80-pound cover is a cover weight, which is the weight of the paper. So you want to have them, and you have them output that for you. You can get 1, 2, 10. I buy like a 50 sheet pack, because I have a printer that I print them out at home. Now, if you have a printer, all the better, then you can print them out at home. But if you can't, Staples can do a good job, and so can Sun Graphics for you. They, and Staples is open. I was there the other day, and they're in business, and they're glad to see you. Okay, Anything else? Could you show how to paint a tree with leaves and branches? And that's from Cheryl. Okay, sure. Let me see. All right. Let me just get some stuff
You know,
off the
where
table.
you're not using a lot of detail, but it looks like a tree, the way you apply the paint, and it just, you know, like, when I try to do it, it sometimes does not look that way.
Well, you know what I find is like, I think trees are one of the most difficult things to paint. And I did a whole study of like some birches for a while. And I think almost the less you do, the better is the way to look at it. Yes, let me get a piece of paper here. I have the brushes out. And after I do this, I'm going to put something else on the board for us. Okay. I'm just going to remove this one thing from the paper here. Okay. Now I'm going to see if I actually have a tree that I can look at. I always like to look at something when I'm painting. Let's see here. Have you all been to Verona Park recently? Beautiful. Oh, all the trees are just doing their thing there. Absolutely. So let's see if I have something.
I heard the iris garden was in full bloom at beginning of the week.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. That's a real joy. And last year they had such a bad time of it because now can you oh, I don't know if you, no, that's too close up. That's too close up for what you want. Let's see here. We want something with branches. Okay, well here, this is pretty good. All right. Okay, so the first thing I do, I have to give myself some kind of a guide. If I can find a pencil, then we're in good shape. Ah, I rolled under the palette. Okay, this is not a cherry tree like the one we did, but it's in that same family. Can we go back to the table, Michelle? Okay, all right. So what I do usually is whenever I start something, I try to think of it, the contour first on the page. And that means the outer area. I'm going to turn this page this way. Okay, so in this case, this is sort of comes up. Now you guys can't really see this picture, but I will show you. Around here, it has a branch that comes out like that. From this main stem, it has, can you see? I'll press a little harder, which I don't normally do, but I will. Okay, so from the main stem, this comes down. Then there's another one that comes out of the ground, up, and this one is going to go right off the page. So, and usually trees start out like wider. This one has a branch that comes off here, and then another one that's there. And then, and always, you know, they're gonna, these branches that are coming off are gonna start out wider here and go thinner and then branch off. Okay, so then as we go up, there's more up here. So I give myself this kind of, I call it a roadmap. And then I always try to think of the palette, which I told you guys how to do that. Okay, so once I see that, you can see this, right? Sort of. Okay. You can see that it's like a kind of a roadmap. Okay. Now what I'll do, because the branches, let me show you the photo. Oh. Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. Can we see that? Okay, so you can sort of see it, right? See how the branches, one goes way off. There's a shadow underneath it. Okay. Now, let me go back to doing what I do. Because the branches are the darkest thing usually on the painting, I try to get in there and indicate the lighter things that are around it. So in this case, and this is kind of just a guide for me, I'm just going to put in some of that pink to give me a guide, because the branches go in and out of the pink. Okay. So starting over here, there's pink that goes here, and there's a little that's here, here. And I just add water because you don't want it to be that defined right away. Here. Okay. Now this is going to be a little tricky because this is not going to be dry. So I'm going to try to paint on top of it when it's on the in the wet stage, unless I just let it dry a little bit. And you don't want to have any like hard edges usually. Go back and sort of make it soft, but at least it gives you a framework for where the pink is. So if you see any really sharp edges, just go back and add a little water there along that edge. You don't want it to seem like it's too rigid. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to let that dry for just a few minutes because otherwise we're going to have a big mess on our hands. Okay. In the meantime, did everybody get that email of the bird made from birds?
Yeah, that was awesome.
Yes, it is. It is awesome. Here it is. And I'll tell you what I'm thinking there, guys. Let me put it this way. I was inspired when I saw this in the paper. At first, you don't realize what you're looking at. And then once you get in there and you say, oh my goodness, it's a bird made from birds, all kinds of birds. So what I would like you to do, and you can do that, I just wanted to throw this out to everybody. I wanted you to pick a subject that if you picked, say you picked flowers. Is this a flower that's made from all different kinds of flowers? You know, some that grow tall, some that grow wide. So, you know, it's like, how can you make this? And look at the color scheme here. You know, it's definitely, I mean, there's a flamingo, there's another wide orange bird, there's an owl. So how would you approach something like this? Here's how I would approach it. The first thing I would do is decide, what was I going to do? Flowers? Was I going to do animals? Was I going to do foods? Was I going to do household products? Meaning, is it teacups? Is it glasses? Is it silverware? Does all that come into one form? So you make yourself a list of what your subject matter is. I have a list here, and I thought I would kind of try something. Now that we're talking about this, and this is something that you can do just on your own. As during the break, or not at all. But I just thought it was so interesting. I picked baked things. So I said, well, what if it was, I made a list of baked things, and it was like cake and cupcakes and bread and cookies and any kind of dessert, pies, whatever. And I started to think, okay, if this is going to be like a tall cake, you know what? I'm going to do this with a marker so you can see it better. Okay, so what if this was like a cake, a tall cake? This was what I had decided. And I'm going to put it on like a pedestal, some kind of a pedestal. Well, how can I, if this is my basic shape, like this was a basic bird shape, this was my cake shape. Okay, So I said, oh, okay, well then I'm gonna, on the top, I'm gonna have a cupcake. And on the top of that, I'm gonna put what do you call it, cherry. And this is the cupcake on top. And then what if the whole stand became a piece of pie? And then you could, you could do the stuff that if it's a blueberry piece of pie, you can, so you can fill in all around. And after a while, these lines that are holding the cake in disappear. And it's something that can really be fun. So, give it a shot, try it. And over the break, you can, send it to me. How's that sound? Like fun? So a bird made of birds was really an inspiration. I just think that that's so cool. Okay, let me see if I can get back to that that tree. Let's see. Okay, it's still a little wet, but it's okay. It's okay. So now what I would do is with a smaller brush, not necessarily the smallest one, but like let's see. Well, you start out with the table and you have so much room, and then everything room just disappears. Okay. Okay. Now I'm gonna mix up something with you know how I talked about neutral tint. Well, neutral tint is exactly what its name is. It's let me move it in here a little bit. It's kind of a neutral grayish kind of color. And then what I like to do is I like to mix some blue with that. And I like to mix some brown with that to come up with kind of a cool trunky color. And you always want to try that color on the side. It seems a little dark to me. And it's going to spread once you just don't want to go in there with brown and say, okay, that's the answer. It's not quite the answer. Okay, this isn't too bad. This brownish, bluish, grayish, whatever. Okay, now when you do the branches, this one over here comes way out, and just come down and try to follow the contour. And remember when I talked about holding the brush way back? This is a good time for that. This is a good time for that. And then up here, this one. So you give yourself the outer, and then this one. And I'm painting on the dark sides of these branches. I'm looking for the dark side. And what's going to happen, you go back in and you just put water next to where you just painted. And you see how that begins to look like the tree? Everybody get that? Now, there's really no leaves on here, but I'm going to try to, imitate that a little bit. So here, the same thing happens up here. Hold your brush way back. Know that it gets wider. There's what does it mean when you hold the brush like that? Well, it gives you kind of a less determined feel and a little more natural feel. Okay, and but in the end, it will look like something. Now, once this gets a little drier, and what happens with those, well, those leaves or the paint, I'll put on some, that's why patience in painting is the #1 gift. Because, you know, you can go back in here and you'll see that some of them come over and you kind of dapple them on. And sometimes I use my hand because it breaks it up a little bit. And it wouldn't really make any difference if this was leaves. Let's try some green leaves here. And the idea with leaves is, of course, they're not all going to be the same color green. Some are going to be darker, some are going to be lighter. So, you know, the same thing goes for leaves. We'll put in some darks, and you're going to know that this tree doesn't really have many leaves, but you have to look at the character of the tree. Sometimes they'll, and you go back in there and you mix in the light at the same time. Can we see? Does that answer anything? Good. Okay. All right. And then there's another thing when you're doing like the bark, you can go back to your neutral tint and your mixture of blue, neutral tint, and brown. And then you can really, I noticed that there were some, you know, some shapes in here that were like, you know, some scraggly, knobby kind of things, and you can go back in there and you can look for the shadow shapes and everything, you know, whether it's all done wet or dry, that's what you have to decide. And then you can, just so you don't want to make it so pronounced, just add the water. And you already know that this is the dark side of your tree. So remember what I said, don't be afraid of the darks? Well, that's what's going to happen here again. I'm going to go back in and I'm really not going to be afraid of the darks here. But what that does, it definitely defines the branch. It defines it. Oh boy, it's all running. And you just look for the character of the tree. It almost has an Asian feel, a little bit, because of the way it's, you know, put down. And then would you go back in there and add a little sky? Why not? Let's see. Does anybody have any other questions about previous work we've done or just the class in general?
Would you normally do the sky first?
You know what? It just depends on what I'm going for. Because we were talking about the tree and, you know, the leaves, and just because we were talking about that, I don't really have an answer like what comes first and second. It just sort of how the painting comes together. You know, it's like, what are you looking to do? Sometimes, you know, there's no background. Sometimes the background really helps it. Sometimes you can go in there and say, oh, you know, oh boy, is this running? Oy, oy, oy. That's the other thing. You have to be patient. And you know how we talked about, oh, what if we want to have a cloud in the sky? You know, now's the time to do that. Wipe it off. Go back, smooth it out. You know what? I'm going to put some, I'm going to put some of what's on the ground here. I have this really cool color. It has it's one of those Holbein colors, and it's like, I don't know, it's just, also look at the direction of the ground in this photograph. It's very angled, you know, and those are the kind of things to look for as well. You know, don't just make it straight across. Look how it meets the sky. You know, is there green in here? Yes, there is. Put some green in. And you notice I leave white showing through once in a while, because I think that's what makes watercolor what it is. It has a little sparkle to it. Let's see here. And usually things that are farther away from you, like on this horizon line here, then that color should get darker in there, so that it looks like it's in the background. Everything that's closer, because I'm painting wet on wet here, it's really crazy, but that's okay. Now there's a little bit of dark. There's a little bit of like a dark shadow thing coming in here. Let's see what that looks like on the wet. Okay. Oh, and then I don't know what'll happen here, but I'll do it anyway. You take, remember I talked about the purple coming into the shadows no matter what you're painting and what colors are in the painting. So I'm bringing some purple into this brown, and I'm going to lay it on top of that gold color to show you that there's a shadow coming off of this tree. It's probably going to bleed, but just hang with me. So now that's the purple, and this is the shadow onto the ground from the tree above. And the same thing is going to happen on this side. It's very wet though. And then there's some kind of very, look at the way, I'm going to bring this into the picture a little more. Back here in the picture, there's these very tall, like branchy things. So I'm going to put some of those in, and you go from the bottom up, whether you can see these. That's the other thing to look at when you're painting. You know, what's horizontal? Where is the tree? You know, is it in the middle? Is it off center? You know, what are these things? These are going to create a whole nother look. And they run all along here. They run all in the back here. And I don't know, they're kind of wispy, but so you'd have to put them behind. But in the end, it'll bring the painting all together. Really, I'm going to lay this down one more time so you can see. You see those wispy things in the background? And the shadow on the ground? Yeah. Okay, I hope this answers some of those tree questions. Yeah? Okay, good. All right. Well, it has been my ultimate pleasure to work with all of you. We have had some great results. And if in fact you find yourself doing something with the bird made of birds, or cake made of cakes, or animals, or flowers, or housewares, you can send it to me. I'd be delighted to talk about it, look at it, and you know, just as an email. That would be fun. Okay, are we pretty good? Oh, you know what? I have some, since we have a couple more minutes, I have some words of wisdom. And these are from, not my words of wisdom, but I like them because many times I feel exactly this way. It's a checklist of common mistakes and difficulties. So if you find yourself running into difficulties and mistakes, you're not alone. All of us do. Careless drawing. You want to make sure when you're doing a painting that you have a thoughtful drawing. You know, is it like even with the tree, where did I place it in the right spot? Should it have been farther to the right, the left? So that's, you know, careful drawing. Too many sharp edges. What does that mean? You know, if there's things that you're not softened, especially with watercolor, you know, water it down a little bit, make it softer. Let's see, painting more values than are necessary. Is it so busy with values that you can't appreciate the painting? Like, meaning you don't want to have 50 different greens going on in your trees. You want to have maybe 3, light, medium, dark. Unsuitable brushes. Unsuitable brushes, it can be a real hazard for a painter. There's nothing worse than trying to do something and fighting with a brush. Just if you can afford to buy one good brush, then make it a good one and make it one that can go wide and point. That's what you need to do. Let's see, words of words. Stepping back from your work once in a while. There's, you know, I have a table that I walk by in the studio here often. And if I'm looking at something and I'm working on it, I leave it there and I go, oh, that's what's wrong with that. But it might not be for until 2 days later. So step back from your work. Working from inadequate photos. If you're working from a photo, try to pick that photo for the right reasons. Does it have enough information in it? Can you translate from it? Translate meaning, can you see enough darks and lights? And does it have enough information for you to paint from? Poor working light. You know, you want to work in an area that has enough light for you. You know, you don't want to be straining your eyes. Painting shadows too light. That's when I say, darks are your friend. Darks are your friend. Okay. Muddy color means that you're painting and mixing too many colors on top of each other before they have a chance to dry or before they have a chance to mix well. Okay, and let's see, the last one's here. A deficient palette. What does that mean? That means we were talking about paints. A poor selection of pigments. I mean, certainly I could send out a selection of pigments that I think would be a great start. Does everybody like to see that?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that. And it'll just be the friends you should start with, and then you can carry on and buy them as you go. Let's see. Fear of making a mistake. Never be afraid to make a mistake. It's only paper, paint, and your time. So don't be afraid. You know, if you think you're worried about that, then you know you're in the wrong business, because watercolor is all about trial and error. Let's see. Oh, you have to clean your palette and your brushes while you're working. And confusion. Let's see. Don't try to paint too much detail. Trying to paint what you don't want. Oh, do not paint what you don't want to paint, even if your teacher suggests it. That means you should paint what you want to paint. You know, I'm giving you things to paint because I want you to learn techniques. But it's like when you sit down to do the next painting, whether it be flowers or a still life or outside, make it an area like the rose garden up at Brookdale Park now is blooming and beautiful. And you can sit there with a chair and you can take your paints. And I mean, if that's what you like, that's what I do on a Sunday sometimes. You should paint what you want to paint, always. Let's see, do we have any other? Let's see, terrific. All possibilities, thanks so much. I've learned a lot, thank you for being. Well, you're welcome, you're welcome, you're welcome. It's my joy and pleasure to work with all of you. And I'll tell you the results, you know, what they say, proof is in the pudding. And this pudding is very rich. Thank you very much. Okay.
Are you
It's
having
been wonderful.
are you having this class in the summer session?
I'm going to, I'm glad you asked that question. I'm going to be teaching something, it's going to be 3 sessions. July 17, and then what's the next week? 24 and 31. It's going to be a little bit different. We're going to do a little bit of printmaking, and we're going to do watercolor into that printmaking. I'm going to show you something, because if you're going to be interested in it, you need to save, you know, these trays that you get from the grocery store, whether vegetables or meat come in here, it's styrofoam, these trays. Okay, and what happens is we're going to cut off the edge, and then we're going to do a drawing. This happens to be a rabbit. Okay, but you can do patterns. You don't have to do animals. And then we're going to, with a ballpoint pen, we're going to press that image into that styrofoam. Okay, and then, ta-da! This is what it prints out. We're going to put paint on that styrofoam and then print it on there. And you can either put a background color down and then print it, or you can just do a one color and print it. So it's going to be a very simple printmaking class and fun. Anybody interested in that?
Sure.
Maybe. Okay. Okay. All right. I think it's great. I did a lunar calendar, you know, all of the lunar animals, and it's been great fun. And who knew that you could repurpose these trays? Ta-da. Okay. And if you're not going to do anything figuratively, you can always do, you know, patterns and swirls and, you know, just abstract designs, trees, flowers, beautiful stuff. And you know what's sort of magical? When you put the paint on and then you put the paper on top and you take it off, it's a total surprise. You almost never know what's going to happen. But it's fun, and I thought for those 3 sessions, and then we can get back in there and add watercolor to it on top. Okay, I will send a list of paint. Is there anything else anybody else would like to see? Let's see. No? We're sure? We're good. Okay, over and out.
Thank you.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Much.
Can't say
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Terrific.
Don't,
Thank you.
don't forget, folks, don't forget to register for the new mill session, which is 10 a.m. on the 29th of June.
Okay.
And
Thank
there's
you.
3 art classes offered in the summer mill session. One is an introduction to drawing, and then Karen's printmaking class. And then there's one more class with a new instructor, a short class that's more craft oriented, but it'll be a decoupage. Yeah, decoupage class.
That's great. Thank
Still
you.
finalizing all the dates and everything, but you'll get the mill brochure shortly, okay?
And is it going to be very limited participation?
No, no.
Okay,
Will you
so
send
you
us-
don't have to do a mad rush to register.
That's great.
Send us that
That's one
information.
goodness. Yeah.
You'll send us the information to register.
Yep, you'll get the full brochure. A lot of the classes that were in the middle of the Edgemont newsletter, there were a lot of classes not added to that. We've added classes to that newsletter, so you'll see more offerings than you saw in the newsletter.
Great.
Okay, and you'll get that separate mail brochure emailed to you shortly. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle, for all your help.
Oh, I love being your wingman, Karen. I learned so much.
Okay, all
Have a
righty.
great day, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen.
Michelle,
Bye-bye.
when are we going to hear about the Polo Kramer tour, virtual tour?
Everybody's been registered that emailed me, and probably maybe in about less than a week, you'll get an email. I don't want to send it out too soon because what happens is people lose it, but you'll get a login ID code so that everybody will individually log into that class.
Okay.
The tour will start. But that's that's coming up on the 18th. So probably by next Thursday, you'll get it for the following Thursday. Okay?
Thank you.
I'll look
Yep.
for that.
Okay.
Thanks, Michelle.
Bye.
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 Bye. Thanks, Karen.
Bye-bye.
Bye.